Welcome back to Last Week Chopped Up. I'm here with my boy Jeremy with that crystal clear video coming out of LA, California. Jeremy, how you doing out there?
I'm doing good, bro. Yeah, I have to get the camera right.
Yeah.
Looking forward to this Friday. Let's get here weekend. So, yeah, man, let's just go. Weekend sports. I'm here for it. I'm ready, excited. So that's where I'm at right now.
Okay, weekend is sports. I think fall. I like fall, and when fall comes, it's that triple confluence of sports in America where you have baseball, football, and basketball at the same time, which is pretty dope. And it's like not. I mean, you live in LA, so it's probably nice there, but here it's 45 degrees outside and raining. So I'm like, oh, we're watching some sports this weekend, like it's going to be, the U.S. Grand Prix is this weekend. If you're, a little F1, U.S. Grand Prix
That's
is
a racing. Okay, racing thing.
Yeah, the
All right.
F1 U.S. Grand Austin, Texas is this weekend. Lewis Hamilton probably going to do it right. So it's a big sports weekend.
Oh, wait, question. So one of my buddies a few weeks ago, he went to the Long Beach Grand Prix. What is that?
That was Indy. That's IndyCar. That's the
Indy. Okay.
That's the American open wheel racing format. So it's that's IndyCar.
So is it like this is the same as F1 but just the American version, or no?
That's a for the level of detail you want to get involved in. That's exactly right. Yes.
Right, because in my head I'm like, okay, this is the MLS compared to La Liga.
Yeah,
all right, that works for me.
Yeah, exactly. The only real difference that's like material is that in IndyCar, all of the cars are the same chassis, so it's the same sort of vehicle, and they just have different engines. But in Formula One, each team develops their own car from scratch, and so they have a lot more freedom to make it faster. And so one of the main consequences is that F1 cars are super fragile because the game theory basically is like, if I make my car more breakable but faster, you can't catch me. But in IndyCar, one manufacturer makes the vehicles, so they make them much more durable so they can actually bump into each other and race really hard. So IndyCar racing, they will smack into each other, and like the cars are just ultimately that element's been leveled. So like the racing style is quite different, and it's much more like bumper, this sort of thing. Because in F1, the cars are all made of carbon fiber, and if they touch each other, they just break. So it's actually kind of lame in that respect.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
definitely didn't know that.
Yeah.
Don't want to go too deep down the rabbit hole. But
as deep as I'll take you.
I have one other question.
Okay.
Because I thought I saw something. Is there some sort of point system in F1, and like you can build your car based off some sort of point allocation, or am I just crazy town?
That's a deep question. So
see, boy, I know hurt a little bit.
Okay. So to control costs, you have they limit the amount of upgrades you can do each year to your engine and certain part of your car, because they just don't want like the biggest teams, like salary cap basically. And so the way they do this is like they assign point values to the, let's say, size of an engine upgrade or a brake system upgrade and so forth. And every year you're allocated a certain amount of like improvements you can make just to kind of level the playing field. Otherwise, like Lewis Hamilton, he drives for a Mercedes Motor Company is going to pump infinity dollars into it, and they will just, if you don't cost cap it at some point, one team will just run away. So yeah, it's equivalent to like a salary cap. That's the idea, but it doesn't work as well as a salary cap, because like it's kind of like you get 2 points if you want to upgrade your engine, but then it doesn't say how much you can spend on that right now. So then it's like, okay, well, I'll spend a lot more, but next year they're moving to a full salary cap model.
Okay, yeah. So hopefully we're still doing this thing. Can't wait to break that down, because to me, salary caps in general in sports, great topic.
Yeah.
The baseball approach of, there's really no cap. There's seem to be no, I forgot if there's like a luxury tax, or because like
There's a luxury tax.
the NBA one, there's a luxury tax, repeater tax, all this, but like 10 to 11 teams are always over the limit. So at some point, like, well, what are we even doing here if a third of the league is over the tax level at any given time?
I mean, the difference between the two, I think, right, is that in the NBA, it's a soft cap, but you can only go over with certified exceptions, Larry Bird exception, mid-level exception, and so forth. In baseball, you can just go over willy-nilly. You just pay a tax, right? So in baseball, you can just like, and the penalties for going over are lesser in baseball, right? So like you said, in baseball, you can just, sign whoever you want and pay the tax. Whereas in NBA, it's like, well, you can go over by signing your incumbent star or through your mid-level exceptions or whatever, but it's sort of designed that you can't go too far over.
I don't know, man. Like, you look at I haven't looked at the Warriors salary, but I think the Warriors are like 40 million, 30 million. Like it is
I mean,
great. And like they're paying repeater taxes of like, okay, you're like, I don't know, we talked about before, but when they, Kelly Oubre had a $18 million contract, but since the Warriors are in like a double repeater tax, the cost of them was actually like $72 million
yeah,
or something.
yeah,
They're paying 2.5x his salary
yeah,
because they're so deep in the tax.
yeah.
And they are still deep in this. It's not like it has ended. And that's where it's like, okay, what are we trying to do here? Because this team makes so much money. They're like, we don't, okay, we're in the quadruple repeater tax. Don't care. This one person, we're going to pay his salary and 3 times that in tax. Cool. Don't care. That's where just like, okay, what's the point of this tax?
I mean, the theory behind it is they're only in this position because they've re-signed star players, and they always. I mean, what's the NBA rules like? Super simplified. You can always go over the cap to re-sign any incumbent player, and you can re-sign incumbent players to a higher contract than anyone else can sign them. So, like, if you just sort of have 3 or 4 guys that end up being awesome, you'll go way over the cap to re-sign them, and then you're stuck with veteran minimums, mid-level exceptions, and all the various little tweaks to the game that you have. But yeah, you can go over by like infinity. You just have to like it's just following the formula. Whereas in baseball, I think you can just go over like more freely. But I agree with you. I mean, the end. But that being said, these salary caps, you come out to Europe and you look at these soccer leagues, and there's like 2-3 teams in Spain that can win at any given time, and that's it. And it's like it's terrible games of top teams versus bottom tier teams. And so I don't know. It's like I think the NFL probably does it the best with the hard cap, right? It's like you have to spend. There's a hard cap of whatever it is, and then the floor is 80% of the cap. So basically, you just have every team is spending. There's no tanking where you just stack revenue like a baseball with all the revenue sharing. Like you're pretty much every team has the same cost structure, right? Like that I think is probably the best system to me, at least. Like you just can't. This Warrior situation doesn't exist in the NFL. Like you just like, okay, cool. Well, you better cut a bunch of dudes and have like high school players on the squad because you cannot go over. You know.
Right. I feel like we need to have a former GM or something on. Be like, okay, now you break down dead cap on your books for a player that you cut or traded and how a significant part of his salary is still on your books in football. Like to me, that's still kind of crazy. So we traded this guy and he still counts 25 million against our cap. Okay.
I will say,
but people just don't care now about dead money either. Like it. I mean, I know he didn't plan to start off with, hey, here's GM and salary cap talk, but I'm loving it. I love this stuff.
I mean, to me, like it's interesting how you, for your product, right? Like you're thinking, how can I create balance? You know, the idea that if you're smarter and better and so forth, you win with competitive parity, right? And I think North American sports leagues have always really tried to go towards competitive parity, at least to some degree. And European soccer leagues have just said, you know, we'll let teams go. Like, you know, Real Madrid's in a $500 million debt position or $1 billion debt position because they were just signing players and signing players and signing players and stuff. So I don't know. When I talk to people out here about it, they're like, I wish we had salary caps because then like the smaller teams could have a chance and like, you know, it would be kind of interesting. But then, you know, you talk to a fan of like Manchester United or something, probably they don't feel the same way, you know. So it just kind of depends where you're at.
The system's great.
Yeah, exactly. Like we'll run through some squads. So I don't know. It's an interesting. What's also interesting too is like with promotion and relegation, like there have been people out here, like in England especially, where they buy up like a 3rd division team. And then they're like, okay, we're going to invest so much money in them. And then there's stadium requirements. But in theory, you can just buy up like a 2nd or 3rd division team, build a new stadium, invest hundreds of millions per year in wages. And then like, I don't know, magically 3, 4, or 5 years later, you're in the top league, right? So like you can go like, you know, you can build the dream, which I kind of like too, which is kind of cool. Like you imagine like putting it together like, hey, let's make a team and another LA team. Let's do it. You know, let's buy the AAA team in Santa Barbara and make them into whatever it is. You know, it's kind of cool.
Yeah, that just, again, to my American sensibilities, still is a wild concept. It's like, hey, this Because even here, like most of the minor league teams are affiliated with the big team,
Yeah.
right? There's, other than like maybe independent league
Yeah.
baseball or some random, but mostly like, okay, like whatever, the Sugarland Scooters or
Yeah.
whatever they're
Well,
called.
they're
It's
now
like,
the
yeah,
AAA affiliate of the Astros.
yeah, I know, right? Because they
Yeah.
finally did like, hey, we're going to align where teams are with like the big team. So like, oh, the team that is whatever 25 miles from downtown Houston, they will be the Houston team.
Yeah.
Like instead of like them being in Iowa somewhere, wherever
Yeah,
their AAA
exactly.
team was before, it's just like, oh, and I remember. Wait, is Double A still Round Rock for them, or did they change? Do you remember?
Yeah, I think Round Rock is a Rangers affiliate now, and Double A is Corpus
Okay.
Christi. I think it's the Corpus Christi
Okay.
Hooks, but that's we're going.
Yeah, we're
I'm
down.
I'm past the days where I was following like the deep Astros minor league affiliates. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. I love because was it this year or last year? They're just like, we're changing all of this.
Yeah, it was last year.
Like it was
Yeah,
just
yeah,
like
yeah,
overnight. Like, yep,
yeah.
just changing it.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, they cut teams and stuff. I don't know. I mean, minor league baseball is one of those like that to me is like peak American romanticism. The idea that there's like a minor league team in like every city in America. Basically, if you go down to how small you are, because each major league team has 5 or 6 minor league affiliates. It's what is that? 30 major league teams, 100, 150, 200 minor league teams out there. So it's like, oh, as long as you're like on the map, you have a minor league team. It's crazy to me. It's like you just out there, living in motels and playing ball. And you probably been. I've been to like single A, double A games. It's an interesting environment. It's fun, but it's
Yeah, I mean,
it's
it's fun. Smaller thing. Like, fun fact, I was like, I don't know, man, 12 or 13, went to visit some of my cousins in South Carolina. I think it was Greensboro. And they were, at that time, was it
Greenville?
Greenville?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Greensboro's in
You
North
probably
Carolina.
know.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, Greenville. Brr.
Yeah, exactly.
But the thing was, we went to the game, and fun fact, a young Chipper Jones was
Oh,
playing in the game, so
uh-oh.
got to see Chipper before he was a deal. So there is some of that, I'm getting to see this guy as he's coming up, like the hot new star. He's in town. He might be here for 3 months or 6 months. So you better get to the park and see him before he's on the big squad. So I think if you're in one of these smaller towns, there's some of that like romanticism
Yeah.
of, I'm saying like this is going to be the guy, but this is an itty bitty stadium. And, I might be able to go talk to him as opposed to, when he gets the big leagues. You're like, nope, never talking to him ever.
I mean, I don't know. Baseball to me is like, as you play baseball, I play baseball. It's never as good as you, but like when I talk about baseball, especially being out in Europe, like I almost like I get emotional, like Ken Burns style, where it's like, and then you start talking, you're like, Willie Mays is like 76 years old. Like I think Willie Mays got to be like 100. No, he's just a dude that's in his 70s walking around. You know what I mean? Like the heroes, like these legends are still. But I'm with you, like that Field of Dreams they did this year, where they played that game. Like that to me, like, okay, is the sport the most exciting? Let's be real. No, it's not. It's not the most exciting sport out there. Like it's not basketball.
No.
It's not. It's not as good. But there's something. There's if. And my wife was like, Lisa was like, when you're playing baseball growing up, isn't it boring? And it's like, well, you have to think of it in a different way. Like, first, you're eating sunflower seeds, chewing bubble gum, effing around with the coach, like play, like it's a different. You're hanging out, like it's a different kind of sport, right? Like,
Right. And it's that thing, well, sometimes some games are boring. It's also any pitch, anything can happen.
Oh yeah.
So you're just like, you gotta be prepared. Like, oh God, that ball's coming to me in the gap. Like I gotta get on the horse to get to it.
Oh no.
Right.
For sure.
And I mean that's it's such a 0 to 1, right? Because even like soccer, there's some build up, they're breaking away, this might be a play. It's like, okay, so this guy, everything starts with a pitch every single time. Outcome undetermined every time. So any pitch, I need to be prepared for all possible outcomes. And like that is just atypical from most sports, right? All right, you're gonna shoot the basketball. If it goes in for 3 points, all right, cool. But it's not like the defense had to catch the ball, pass it around. Like there's no, just it's very different mechanics. So
I agree.
talking to them. Go ahead. Yeah, I was like, so I was talking to my boy out here. So we've been watching playoff baseball. I got him into the, he's adopted the Stros. He's one of those doesn't care about baseball. So we were, I know I was watching game 4 when we eked out, and we're going. He's betting on it. He's watching every pitch, and he's like, wait, what? I'm like, yo, bro. And then Tuve hit the home run to tie it 2-2. Just like, yeah, there we go, Tuve. That's my guy. And I think to me, when like playoff baseball is just so different because it is
Yeah,
just every pitch has emotion.
yeah,
Every pitch is draining, right?
yeah,
And you're just on the edge of your seat the whole time. And that's the thing, kind of that emotion that you get. Just like, yo, this, like, I am into this game in a way I just can't be into a basketball or football game.
nah,
Like, it is just, oh my god, he called that a ball. What is he doing? Because there's this, this, not that they don't have refs in other games, but it's like, okay, in theory, a strike's a strike,
yeah.
call a strike, But yeah, it's just getting, even seeing people who don't care about baseball sometimes just catch the emotion of a game. I'm like, yeah, this is why baseball is different.
Yeah. No, I'm 100% with you. I think I love football, but playoff football ultimately feels like a football game to me. It feels like it's they're always intense, I guess it just feels like a football game to me. And basketball, it is different, right? Like they're playing defense a lot harder, that's for sure. But baseball, it's like the whole game changes. Like every first of all, they have different rosters, right? The games are spaced out in a different way. You can use the bullpen in a different way, but the intensity, it is not one of 162 games. It's like every pitch is what we worked all year, and the dudes that rise to the occasion. I mean, like when Correa hit that home run the other day, and he just dropped his bat, pointed to his watch, and looked at the dugout. I'm like, that's an iconic moment. Like that is like this. Like I to me, I don't know. There's this intensity of, and the teams always end up hating each other, which tells you how intense it is. Like they cannot stand each other by the end of a series. It's kind of like hockey play the same way, right? Like by the end of the series, they can't stand each other.
Yeah, man, yeah, it's just great. So yeah, again, like you said, it's that time. You got playoff baseball, basketball just started, football is going, and yeah, to me, I'm not even in the basketball mode yet. I'm like, okay, I'm not even pretending to care about this. I need baseball to get done.
Yeah.
I'll maybe watch basketball if like football or baseball isn't on. But yeah, man, it is that just perfect time. We're like, okay, I can consume all the sports I
Yeah,
want.
exactly. 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 But speaking of basketball, I mean, it is that time where every team has hope, which I love about sports, right? You start the year, every team has hope. That being said, if you look over at the Philadelphia 76ers, it looks like a bit of a tire fire going on over there with Ben Simmons. I'm hearing, you correct me if I'm wrong, just refusing to participate in practice drills, and it's a complex situation, and certainly don't want to. He said that he's suffering from mental health, and I certainly do want to be respectful of that. But it seems like I would say a spicy situation out there. I mean, what's your take on what's going out there in Philly with their erstwhile almost Eastern Conference champions? Looked like at one point they're going to win the NBA title, and now they are sitting on a tier 1 tire fire.
Yeah, so I think it's a real interesting situation. Like, I think the team can go quite a while and be, you know, top 4 or 5
Yeah,
teams
they'll win
without
games.
been
Yeah,
playing whatsoever, right?
yeah,
Joel Embiid's a top 10 player, so he's
yeah,
going to
yeah,
drag you to 45, 50 wins just because he's on the team, assuming he plays at least 65, 70 games.
yeah.
To me, what's weird, or the uniqueness is, one, guy signed an extension. He's got 4 years and like $140 million, 125 whatever
Yeah.
$1 million left. So you're making a ton of money. You just signed this contract. So, and now he, wants to get traded. There's a lot of background. Hey, he had a bad performance. The coach and the best player on the team said, not the greatest things about him, but
Yeah.
it was in the heat of, we just lost the series we shouldn't have lost, and you played like crap,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, they said some things. Maybe if they could do it again, they wouldn't say, but it wasn't not true what
Right.
they
No, it was
said.
true. It was just
Like,
put it out there in the
but it
streets,
was,
though. They put it out there in the streets.
yeah, it got outside. And to me, I think this is one of those player empowerment, players think they can do whatever. We see how James Harden kind
Yeah.
of forced his way out. We've seen a couple of those.
Yeah.
James Harden had like a year and a half left on contract. He had an opt out. So it's like, oh, this is a little earlier than people usually do this,
No.
but he's been there for what, 8 years or whatever. He
Yeah.
won an MVP. We've gone to the Western Conference final multiple times. He is the guy on the team as well. Like, he's not the number two. So even though it sucked the way he went out, you're like, okay, ultimately people are gonna get past that, get over it. Like, the guy gave his all,
Yeah.
right? That you can look at the stats. There's no stat way of saying he didn't do it. I think on the Ben Simmons front, one, people are just like, I don't think you've given your all. You have not attempted or figured out how to shoot a jump shot or free throws or anything in the last 4 years. You've actually regressed. You've gotten worse.
You shouldn't get worse at that.
That's the type of thing where, as teammates and fans, you're like, yep, you got effort on defense and you're a great defensive player, but that nothing has changed on the offensive side in 3+ years, man. Like, people just think you're not trying. Like, do you have interest in basketball? Because it feels like you're not trying. Stop putting up Instagram videos of you shooting jump shots and how great you look at the gym, because once it comes to the NBA court, you will not shoot the shot. So I don't care what you do when y'all are, because they'll be doing this with other NBA players, right? Yeah. And I've heard some interviews that people are like, oh yeah, when we play pickup, like Ben shoots jumpers, like he does this stuff, you see on Instagram. It's like, okay, well, why doesn't he do it in the game? I think he's, whatever, he was afraid of failure, like thinks he might not be able to do it. I'm like, hey, I get being afraid to fail. We all go through that. Yeah, for sure. But also, you are an athlete. Like, that is just built into what you do. Yeah. Like, that is about showing up, doing things that, like a comp I've heard is, him and Giannis. Like, oh, are these swappable? And I think we've learned that they are not. Because Giannis was not necessarily good at shooting free throws, and he doesn't have a great jumper, but he probably shoots more threes than he should. And he kind of decided, like, I'm going to get to the basket. And if you foul me 20 times, I'll just go 10 from 20. I'm not going to let my maybe inability to shoot free throws affect how I attack the game. Like, I'm going to go all effort and do what I should do as the best player on the team. And that, to me, is the difference of all the opinion about Ben Simmons outside the stupid trade stuff. So to me, I don't know if everyone knows, they started fining him. He has an interesting contract where he got 25%, like the start of the summer. He's going to get 25% the first week of the preseason. The Sixers put that money in escrow, did not pay him $8 million, have been fining him and taking his money, taking it out of his escrow account. So it's just been a decreasing amount. I think he's down to $6 million in an escrow account now. Who knows what that'll go down to? Also, Crimea River for only having $6 million for 25% of your pay. But I think it all comes back to just overplayed his hand. Him and his team thought they could force his way out, and the leadership of the Sixers said, no, we are not going to take a bad deal because you want out. No. Again, you have 4 years left.
You're not going to hold out for 4 years,
And I think it'd be a bad precedent for the league, right? Because now it'd just be like, okay, whoever's going to re-sign their rookie deal to get the max. And then if the next day they're going to go trade me, you're like, dude, the extension hasn't even kicked in yet.
Exactly.
Like, you don't even start making this new money till next year. And that, to me, is why, even if I would say I think the Sixers want to do it on their own, but I imagine the NBA league office is like, y'all are not trading him. Or if you trade him,
I'm sure they're in there.
A value. Like, you're not giving into this because we cannot have this be the precedent.
No, I mean, the NBA can, in theory, veto any trade that violates, like, kind of fair play something, right? Like, so I guarantee, like, this is not the precedent they want to set. And as you said, the Sixers, looking at him and like, look, man, to me, it's where he's complicated the matters. If he was trying his best and he's having mental, psychological challenges, I'm with him. But then why is a trade part of that? And I'm not saying he's not having them challenges, because if he's shooting jumpers in pickup games, he's not shooting them in the NBA game. There's a psychological situation going on, presumably, but I don't think a fresh team is solving that. I think that's something where if he just kind of opened up and said, hey, I'm struggling. I laid an egg in the Eastern Conference Finals and I haven't gotten over it. And I'm a young man. I'm only 20 odd years old and I need some help. Hey, I'm there with you, because from what I've seen from professional sports, there's a lot of great athletes in the world, but the ones that succeed at the top level have an incredibly hardened psychology where if they fail one day, they just come back out the next day. And I remember, I used to box, and if I got roughed up in sparring, I probably wouldn't want to spar for a week or two. But the guys that were actually good, like, I wasn't actually good, right? Like, the guys that were actually good, they could get beat up bad on Monday, and they're there on Tuesday, and it's like zero memory of it. It's like, hey, what's up? It's like, remember last time? It's like, last time, today's today, like, forget last time, you know what I mean? Because you can't have a memory of that stuff. And I was always impressed by just the psychology of these guys, where it just, I didn't have it. I didn't have what they had, and it was skill level, but it's also just that mental fortitude. And And every sport, I feel like that's something where some guys get to a level where that gets exposed, at a certain level. And I'm not saying that means they're bad, but it just means you have to go work on something else. But if you're not going to work on that and you're going to post on Instagram, that's probably not going to be a solution. I'm with the Sixers. Like, hey, fine them. But I couldn't imagine being a boss and fining an employee. I mean, I've never had a situation. You manage a lot of people where it's like, hey, you didn't show up to work. We are fining you. Like, that's awkward to me. I'm getting awkward thinking about it.
Yeah. Well, because most other things, like, all right, well, we're just gonna fire you.
Oh yeah, usually just fire you.
You're just like, this is over. But you're like, oh, we can't just fire you. It's a guaranteed contract. We've got a players, a union that we have to deal with here. Like, there's rules. But we are gonna take your money.
Yeah.
Like, it's like, because that was the thing everyone didn't know if they would actually do it. They were like, hey, is this even allowable under the union and all this? And like, it's almost on the I don't know the legal words, but it's like he's not putting in whatever minimal effort actually trying. Like, I'm sure there's some
whatever.
it's like yep, he's not trying, so boom, fine. Tax. Every game you don't show up, you cost yourself $250,000. And when they, when they kicked him out of practice, when he didn't want to do the drill, they suspended him from one game. It's like, yep, that's gone. That money's gone.
Yeah,
like, the suspension means you lost your money. So. Yeah, I think this will continue to be a tale. We'll see how it plays out. I really don't know, right? Because this could easily go. I mean, the trade deadline is like in February. This could go to February.
Oh,
like, they're no rush to trade this guy.
They're not going to rush to trade him, but the worse it gets, ultimately, the likelihood he's in a Sixers uniform in the future goes down. I think the relationship will deteriorate. But if they can credibly assert that they'll just wait, they don't need to rush to trade him, and they can just hold him on the bench all year, and it's not cost him any money if he's just sort of sitting out voluntarily. It's one interesting one. This is a spicy one. Can you remember in the NFL? Certainly, things have gotten this spicy. I mean, guys have held out the whole year. Le'Veon Bell recently. I mean, Dwayne Brown and Texans held out 4 or 5 games, right? But I can remember guys holding out a whole year in the NFL because it's a different sport, right? They're just like, hey, stop franchise tagging me, giving me 1-year contracts, and pay me. And then, as a fan, I'm like, I get that. You don't want to play on a 1-year contract. You get hurt. Guy's got a 4-year contract. I've never heard of a guy on any sport on a 4 years worth of contract sitting out like this. I've never seen anything like
4 year making the most money you can be paid. Like, it's not like they paid him. I'm pretty sure he got the most money. Any team would be on. Just the most he would have got paid on any team.
Yeah, you got a max deal.
Yeah, and it's just like, okay, so it's not the money thing.
No.
So it is that is the thing that makes it different.
Because, it's different.
Yeah, you're usually holding out to get my paper.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. And you're like, oh, but they gave you the all the dollars, all of them.
Yeah. I mean, maybe Kawhi Leonard situation where he had maybe he's injured, maybe he's not, but that's the last 3 months of a 4-year contract. Like, that's the very end, right? That's not the start. And then he won an NBA title, so we all forgive him. But I don't know, but keeping it in the world of sports, I think screw up of the week. I want to talk about John Gruden, because this man apparently. He as an not part of what John Gruden was up to, but an investigation into the Washington football team's fairness practices centered around their former GM, general manager named Bruce Allen. Bruce Allen gets into some stuff. Bruce Allen, not a good guy. And Bruce Allen apparently has multiple repeating threads over the last 10 years with John Gruden, the CEO of Hooters, and a few other characters in the mix, where they talk about how they don't like homosexuals, how they don't like women being referees. They drop language that we would not use on this show. They describe African Americans in language that would be considered by a rational human being racist, in my opinion. And really, they left no stone unturned. Really, unless you're a white guy, I think they came at you. But the interesting part to me, Jeremy, is that, from what I understand, the NFL gave this information to the Raiders on Friday, a week ago, and they leaked one statement, the area around racism. And Gruden apologized, doesn't represent his views. The Raiders were like, doesn't represent his views. He coaches the game on Sunday. Then on Monday, somehow, everything gets leaked. And by the end of the day, he's resigned. And so like that looks a little bit like, hey, we gave you a chance. You know, we put a little bit out there. We gave you a chance. You didn't fire him. Now we're just going to put the smoking. But how do you see this whole, it brought up a lot of feelings, you know, a lot of people are upset. Like, how did this sit with you, you know?
Yeah. Well, one funny thing I've heard is people guessing like, all right, so who's the one leaking all these documents? Because you know, probably not the Raider side, certainly not NFL side. So it's like, all right, are you at one of these law firms or someone who's been looking into the investigation and like, all right, nope, John Gruden's done too much.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to see this guy out there. Like, okay, so racist stuff isn't enough. Okay, how about homophobia, sexism? Like,
exactly.
let's just
throw it in there.
Get it all out there. Yeah, like it. If this doesn't get the job done. So yeah, it's when one of my white friends asked me about the rubber lips comments of what it's the leader of the NFL Players Association.
It was the Players Association at the time. At the time, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, at the time, and being like, Jay, what do you think about that? I'm like, okay, so on its own, certainly has connotations that are not good.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, because he actually heard about it before me. I caught the story a little later. And I was like, and what did he say about it? Oh, this is what I say, whatever, people who lie. I'm like, okay, is there anyone who is not black that we have rubber lip emails about?
Yeah,
because
exactly.
if this is a common thing we say, because
there's 600,000 emails.
600,000. Yeah, like we're not talking about a low volume output here. Like, this is like, my God, you're banging them out. So to me, that's like, okay, yeah, that's the BS level quite high. So I think, obviously when everything came out, it's like, all right, this dude's got to go. However y'all settle this, pay him the money, and I get money. I don't know, but whatever. He can't coach anymore. And some of the homophobic stuff, the Raiders have the one openly gay player on their team. So it's one of those where, if you're that guy and just like, black guys, like, all right, man, so you're, quote unquote, being our leader, high-fiving me, telling me all this stuff. And then there's so much of volume of this. I gotta kind of think behind the scenes, you're the guy that's in the emails, not the guy that's in the locker room. You're this other guy, right? Because the volume's just so high. And like, how do we deal with that? And then I guess nothing for me personally, it's like, all right, so racism isn't the line apparently for you to have to step down in this league. Apparently that is, we can look the other way at. I don't know if it's the three together or if sexism or homophobia, if one has more particular heat, but that did make me kind of go like, okay, so what is needed? Yeah. So like, to me, that's a statement like, all right, it seems like the racism brewing pretty high here, and we were okay to look past that. So that is an additional thought that kind of was like, okay, NFL, like, that's giving me a type of feeling. So I think long and short, he had to go. I think it's also probably exposing more of the, I think Michael Wilbon, or probably still says this on Pardon the Interruption all the time, that football or the NFL has a plantation mentality. Yeah. And to me, this, like, when you get to see some of this behind the scenes stuff, you're like, oh yeah, y'all do kind of, or not y'all, but it is a large part of the leadership of the NFL. Not saying it's everyone, obviously, but it exists and it has not been pushed out. There's not been a Donald Sterling, we ain't having this, you got to go moment at like that level of leadership. So that's kind of another thought that popped into my mind sort of unexpectedly. But what do you think hearing these stories?
I think I agree with you. I mean, the NFL, like, you look at a franchise like the Steelers with the Rooney Rule, the owner of the Steelers with which is the Rooney Rule is that, for those who aren't aware, is that in the NFL for head coaching jobs you have to interview a candidate from a underrepresented group. And while that's not a perfect rule, at least the owner of the Steelers was pushing that as like, we have to do something. And the Steelers happen to have the longest tenured black coach ever, and I can't think that's a coincidence. And they have the best record of signing black free agents, when you're looking to join a club, like, it's known to be a club that you get treated with respect. It's sad to me that that's the exception, and it's sad to me that the owner of the Houston Texans can say, something like the inmates running the prison when they're talking about the players union making rules, where like you just can't ignore the fact that the owners are all white and the players are 64% black, and that incarceration rates in America, like you can't act like we don't live in society, and that statement's not going to be met with, a feeling of wow, that's a mentality. I thought the initial statement around the lips, to me, it felt racist, but his explanation felt like, to me, not plausible, but like borderline, like, I don't know. Is this, like, to me, I heard it, I was like, is this guy racist? I don't know, but that was a racist statement, and there should have been at least a suspension or something. There should have been consequences. Like, is that you get fired? But it should have been called as such. It shouldn't have been like, well, he gave us an excuse. It's like, that excuse is nonsense. Like, let's be very clear. Like you can make racist statements and not be a racist per se. Like, I mean, as in you can be. We should condemn also the act and not necessarily, and it's always like, that doesn't represent me. It's like, well, you're contributing to a hostile culture with that kind of statements. And I think there should have been consequences. Now, it comes out that he's dropping, FAGGOT. He's saying Michael Sam shouldn't have been drafted in 2014 and the league shouldn't be pushing things. And like you said, Caleb Nassib sitting on the Raiders, first openly gay player in the NFL, can't feel good, right? And he comes out, I remember he tweeted the day Caleb Nassib came out, what a great day this was, whereas behind the scenes, he's saying queers shouldn't be in the NFL. They shouldn't be pushing it. I'm with you. Oh. The guy is more represented in the closed-door emails, and to me, he seems like an atrocious human being that needed to get fired. But I think we have to ask the question, why is a racist act not getting some form of punishment? Why is that just kind of like, well, cool? Like he said rubber lips is how he describes. Like, I've never heard anyone in my life say rubber lips. I've never heard any in my life say that's how you describe a liar. I've never heard anyone in my life say that. I don't know. To me, it was an easy pass, and the Raiders organization deserves to. They look like idiots to me.
So we'll see. He's out. I think that's drawn up some more heat. I actually think like the Senate now is kind of asking like, hey, you know what? Give us those emails, because there was a greater call like, hey, is anyone else implicated? And I forgot who was verifying. It's like, oh no, it's just whatever the Allen,
Bruce
Gruden,
Allen,
and the other. And it's like, okay, but maybe we want someone else to double down on this part here.
I mean, this is the same.
Really go through all these emails
for sure. This is the same. The NFL's stance